I'm Brent. This is Bloody Nose Garage. Today I'm going to video record this oil pan I powder coated. Hit it with 3 coats from Eastwood. It was a zinc rich primer, chrome, and then a top coat with the copper penny. Yes, parts going on my 59 Apache that Troy Mayman is from the Wapsie River Valley, way down there. He's building for me. Truck I picked up in Oklahoma. Haven't named it yet. If you're interested, leave a comment and come up with a name. And I like it. I'll crochet you a hat and I will film it. And there we prove. And you'll be famous. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this. It's really my second project after the aircraft parts I did for my stunt pilot friend, Eric. Anyway, I hope you enjoy.
So here you see a good side shot of the Harbor Freight cabinet I hodoored the hell out of. The reason I made it so big was to fit the 20-inch diameter Apache steel rims I want to sandblast. Anyway, I'm going to sandblast this aluminum oil pan to eliminate the oxide which you'll get with aluminum when it sits outside in the air, and it prevents from getting a good coat of paint on. So here I'm going to latch it down and I'm going to hit it with some media. There I go. I'm a jackass. But all right, here I'm pulling it back out. Now it's sandblasted. I'm just going to blow it off with an air gun, and pretty sure I forgot to turn the air on, so I'm going to look kind of stupid. So I'm not an expert yet at powder coating, but everything I do see, the biggest thing you can do is sandblast and degrease. Otherwise you're going to get fish eyes. So I've been using this crud cutter degreaser for the few projects I've done, and it hasn't let me down. I just get it really wet, kind of let it drip off, and then I'm going to wipe it down with a clean rag from my sack, and I might hit it again, just make sure I get all the grease and grime and oil. This was a new part, but after me and maybe at the factory they handled this, they might have got some oils from their hands on it. So I just want to make sure we don't have any fish eyes or anything. And really, after a good cleaning, I'm still gonna bake this off. I'm gonna throw it in the oven. I'm gonna bring it up to 200 or 300 degrees. Then any other impurities or anything in this aluminum is gonna pop to the surface and hopefully burn off. And then we'll start our powder coating. I might show you, you'll see the oven that I did. It's a double wall oven, and I took out the middle, made it extra tall. Once again, I couldn't fit the rims in any standard oven that I plan on using, so it was kind of had to get creative, but I had a lot of fun building it. I'm going to videotape record that sometime and make a video, because people ask me how I did it, and there's not a real science to it. It's pretty simple. So really, I'm concentrating on cleaning one of my powder coat. I'm going to tin foil the bottom of this oil pan off. So I just really want to blow the sand out, the media, and I don't want to put that in my truck all dirty. But most of it's going to get taped off, so it'll stay just aluminum. So I'm going to pull out my wide tin foil I normally use for smoking, and I'm going to lay the oil pan down, and I'm going to trace around it with a Sharpie. And I'm going to use that as a template, and then I'm going to cut it like a 1/2 inch on the inside of the mark. That'll give me room for tape to stick to the bottom of the oil pan, and that'll seal it off good, so when we powder coat it, we don't contaminate the inside. Yeah, when I deliver this down to Troy at Mayman Motorsports, I don't want him to throw me in a half Nelson because I ruined his part for my truck. Once I flip this over and cut this, I'm going to use some high heat tape, specially designed for powder coating. You'll see that it comes in yellow and green so far that I've used. It really does work well. I'm surprised it doesn't shrink or anything. It really sticks, and it hasn't let me down. So here's my template, and I'm going to cut it out with my Milwaukee scissors, of course. I'm not sponsored, but I should be. besides assorted widths of high temp tape, I bought a couple kits of silicone plugs for different uses like this. I'm going to have some threaded holes that I don't want to be filled with paint. And also I'll show you how I'm going to attach the grounding strip, and I'm going to actually come out the oil pan hole with a wire, and I'm going to plug that off with a plug also, and that'll keep the paint out, but it'll be a nice sealed fit. So here I'm going to put the tin foil on. I'm going to tape it down. While you're watching this, you can see I bought extra containers in the background there. That's for the Eastwood paint gun. After my first project, I was, if you want to switch from a primer to a chrome and then put a copper penny on, it was a lot easier just to keep the paint in the container and just switch it out. So before I actually tape it off, I'm going to throw it in the oven there. You can see the oven I made, and it's a little, I've changed it a couple times since then, but there I got it up to temp. Now it's going to be kind of hot. Just hopefully all the impurities come out. And there's my bald head. Anyway, that's a heavy door, and you don't want it to land on you. I've found that the hard way. So here I'm cutting the grounding cord, or wire anyway, and I'm going to wrap it around a bolt, and I'm going to smash it between two washers. And then I got a bolt that fits a standoff inside the oil pan. So I'm going to tighten that down, and I'm going to shove the wire through the oil pan hole, drain hole, and that's going to be a good grounding spot for my Eastwood gun, so we get a good connection, and that will help the powder adhere electrically until we can get it gently placed into the oven and get it baked. So just watching myself now, I should probably be wearing gloves. I don't want to, well, this is hot, but you won't want to touch it and put any oil in that part. That'd be the last thing I'd want to do, screw it up. But luckily it's mine, it's not for somebody else, so no one else to blame. Anyway, that wire is going to work out perfect. It's going to slip down through the oven rack, and it's going to be a great place. Yeah, there I go, touch it. Yeah, burn my hand. I'm stupid. Anyway, there I pushed in a silicone plug, and now I'm going to put the tin foil on, and I'm going to use, it's green tape. It's like 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch width. It's about all I needed from cutting that tin foil with a Milwaukee scissors so perfectly. The hardest part about this was to get the dang thing started. I shouldn't have trimmed my nails. So I found out after using this tape, I was using a utility knife, and I invested in a bunch of X-Acto knives. They cut that tape really well. They go dull though once you start riding on the metal, and you ruin them, but they're cheap. So Amazon driver loves me. While I'm taping this, I'll let you know, usually you're hanging parts in an oven, but luckily this oil pan will lay flat and be able to be upright. It'll be a little bit easier to shoot a flat surface, and it should bake extra fine and smooth out really nice. You can't tell, but this part is still hot, and that tape really sticks really well. It's just you might burn your fingers a little bit if you push it. So after I get this bottom done, I'm going to flip it over. Really all I have to do is tape off where the oil filter goes, and make sure I get all the threaded holes plugged with silicone plugs, and should be ready to apply the zinc-rich primer that I'm going to put on. That's going to be the first coat. So buying these different powders, you got to read the instructions. For the primer, it was 3 minutes at 375 degrees. So it's a very short bake. And then they want you to immediately start applying your base coat, which for me it's going to be the chrome, which is going to give us a shiny finish after we apply the top coat of the copper penny, which is the finish I'm going for. And here I'm just taping off the oil filter flat spots. Nothing too sexy about that. You can see all the silicone plugs I've already put in, and this is where I should have been using an X-Acto knife. It'd have been a little bit quicker. Um, and I had some wider tape, but I didn't know how I was going to quite fit it in there. I probably should have tried. So I just used some inch and a half tape there, and put a few coats on. It was really, that tape is excellent, really easy to work with. Here too, you can see a trick I learned from a different YouTube video. Your oven racks itself, you want to cover them with tin foil, because when you start throwing the powder, you don't want that powder to coat the edge of your oven racks, because you shove it in your oven and it's gonna pretty much bake and it's gonna be hard to pull it out. So it's pretty much just a guard that you take on and off when you're shooting the powder. So hats off to whoever showed me that, because it would have sucked. I'm sure I'll forget someday, and then I'll remember. There, I finally got the X-Acto knife out, and it really cut a lot easier, more forgiving. Yeah, setting this on sawhorse is kind of a quick fix. I really want to make a booth, maybe have a little downdraft filter or some sort. I'd like it to be enclosed so it'll kind of capture the powder, maybe deflect it back onto the part. And of course, here I originally forgot to start the camera, so this is kind of the end of the zinc rich primer. And this part is hot right now. I pulled it out of the oven, and it's stuck really well. And I'm going to throw it back in the oven after I decouple the negative post right there. And I'm going to take the tinfoil off, and I'm going to throw it in the oven. There you go. Yeah, you can see I'm usually wearing a respirator. I don't want to die, but I usually forget once in a while. I just hold my breath, kind of like cutting on a table saw with just squinting and cheaters on. That's good enough for me, I guess. All right, so in it goes, and here it is when I pulled it back out after I kept shooting it with a laser, and it got up to temp for 3 minutes. And now right away we're going to throw the chrome powder on from Eastwood. And it's a lot of fun to use. It's you just got to be careful you get that electrode too close to the part, and you'll see me zapping it a few times, kind of scared the hell out of me. And there I'd just pulled the controller off my toolbox, so that was a good one. Um, but you can see how it bakes on almost instantly. It's really neat. The machine part of that oil pan really got shiny. You can see a reflection in it, where the rest of the oil pan's kind of a rough appearance, and it didn't shine, but you couldn't see reflection, but it shined like chrome. Uh, yeah, it's one of my funnest projects to do right now, something different, and it's kind of foolproof. The biggest thing is if you got a lot of tight areas, that's the hardest spot for um, paint to get in there and stick. They call it a Faraday, where it builds up a charge and it doesn't want to take that positively charged paint. It wants to deflect it. So there's a little bit of trial and error. But on this part, it was just big. The intake manifold I'm going to do next is going to have a lot of cracks and crevices. So that's where I'm going to learn the hard way and bloody my nose a little bit. Yeah, I definitely need to get a better setup, because this kind of sucks jumping over cords and stuff. I just didn't take the time to figure out the best way to do this. I just wanted to get it done because I was excited to use this stuff. But yeah, I bought 2 pounds of this chrome and 2 pounds of that copper penny, just to see how far it goes. And so far, I mean, I haven't used a half pound of either. It really goes on, and there's not a whole lot of waste. It seems like there's a lot blowing up, but it's a lot of sizzling, because that part's hot. So yeah, you definitely want to wear a respirator, and also when you're baking that's all toxic fumes. So here, after I baked that chrome, I pulled it back out, and now I'm shooting the copper penny. That's an Eastwood product also. This is a little insane, but it went on fairly good. I just blew the hell out of it. Once again, there's not a whole lot of cracks and crevices, so it was pretty forgiving. I've On this project, I kept that diffuser on the end of the Eastwood gun the whole time. It kind of helps spread the powder out instead of coming out like a shotgun. It just kind of helps it ease and fall on the part instead of blowing it back off. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Just as I was shooting this, it was baking and starting to shine, and I was like, wow, if it looks anything like it does now when it comes out, I'll be super happy. Yeah, so one thing I'm not showing is, well, it is called the Bloody Nose Garage, and after I got done with that chrome, I let it cool off overnight because it was getting late, and I came in and I tried to shoot this copper penny pretty much cold, and it just wouldn't stick. I ended up blowing it all off and starting over by putting it in the oven and kind of ramping it up in temperature. Then I pulled it out, and then I started shooting this, and I don't know, it just didn't seem like it wanted to stick. It was really thin. So pretty much, if you do any research, and they call it hot flocking, whatever, I'm not an expert or anything, but it seems to be more forgiving if the part's at least warm. And if anything, I shouldn't have started this so late in the day, so I could have done all three layers in the same day, no problem. The other problem I fought with this project, I only had one burner going in my oven. After this, I did a little rewiring, and I ended up with 2 burners now, so it's extra potent. Well, this thing's ready to throw in the oven.
Well, I hope you appreciate this oil pan as much as I do. I guess it sits in the truck like this. Troy's like, I don't think anyone's ever going to see it, but I'm like, well, hell, if I'm wheel standing or I run somebody over, they'll see it. He thinks the front will be too heavy to lift the wheels off the ground, but maybe I'll fill them with, I don't know, helium or something. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm a little bit touched. Anyway, I'm gonna do the intake manifold, and I'm gonna do some other parts of that truck when Troy gives them to me. I just want to make him happy because I care about him a lot down in that river valley. And I'm gonna video record my oven at some point because I made a lot of modifications to it, and I think everybody would appreciate that. And that media blast cabinet right there, I'm staring at it. I think I'm gonna make it a wet media blasting cabinet. That looks like a good project for tomorrow. So until then, subscribe, keep in touch, and leave a comment with that name of my truck, and I will see you then.